Melanie are talking about their experience of how COVID really impacted that, because also bringing a child into the world at a time where we're going through something us personally, we've never been through. And like, what does this mean? Can our babies get sick? We didn't know anything. People were dying, but at that time we didn't know who or why. And so it was just very scary to be a mom. And like, how long? I mean, like, are we still, is COVID still a thing? Like, I mean, 2025. I mean, like, we didn't even know how long it's, so it just very terrifying.
Hi, it's Tiffany Lorraine Galloway, certified high performance coach with another episode of the Resilient Mother podcast. This month, we're talking about, resilient intuition, trusting your gut. And I have a fellow mom here, Ashley. Thank you for joining me. I found out a few things we have in common is we both have 2020 babies.
Yes.
Have done the work of healing trauma and use different ways of doing that. So Ashley, thank you for being here. Tell us more about you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So I am based in California, San Diego, California, and I am a licensed professional clinical counselor, LPCC. So I'm a therapist by trade. I also am the chief operating officer at a women's holistic organization. So we treat women for substance use issues along with mental health and co-occurring. So both together and then also separately. In nature. So we have 3 companies under Villa Kali Ma, and I'm also a mom, as you were mentioning, of a 5-year-old boy, Lucas. And lastly, I'm actually in school finishing up my doctorate to become a expert in behavioral health. So a lot of juggling right now in my life, but those are kind of the things I'm doing on the daily as of right now.
Well, to first start out, because you're juggling a lot and being the resilient mom, I'm curious what resilience means to you.
Oh, yeah. I have battled with the concept of resilience for a long time. Like, is it something that I was born with? Is this like an innate trait of mine? Because I feel like I've always had a sense of, it's almost like a grounding or a sense of the ability to regulate in times of turmoil, external, internal, both, right? And I feel is also a skill that can be developed. So, I mean, it might be with that nature versus nurture concept, but for me, it is the ability to almost like build a platform, an internal platform for myself in order to kind of navigate life events, right? And it's not just the things that are going outside of me. It's also the things that are going on inside of me. It's kind of like building yourself your own little raft, right? Like your internal raft so that you can kind of go through, anything that, negative outside events that and inside feelings that you're just kind of trying to build a community of calm with it.
I love that. And I really think that speaks to this month's theme of intuition, because it's about doing that inner work and realizing that the power is within you to create the life that you want. And it sounds like you found a way to do that. But you did have a period of time you mentioned before where you were struggling with addiction. And this subject really speaks to me because I have a father who joined the church when he was 21. And before then, he explored a lot of different parts of life. So I discovered in my genetic code that there's this disposition to alcoholism and to addiction in our family. And being aware of that, it's helped me to avoid falling into things that I might easily get addicted to and to choose other things. But not all of us have that knowledge of what to avoid. And we may fall into one of these traps of drugs or alcohol or another pattern, maybe overeating or something to that extreme, that really can derail us from being in tune with our intuition and the path that we want to be on. So I'd love to hear how you were able to overcome that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the things when I was in this long period of addiction was an unknowing, like I didn't know who I was. I didn't know the root of myself when we're talking about intuition. I didn't have a stable intuitive self. And I feel like when you're in a place of that kind of insecurity, you're always reaching for things outside of yourself to fill this internal void.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how much external I reached, right, didn't have to be just for me, it was a lot of alcohol was kind of my main, go-to, but it was also like men and, external validation and trying to seek these things. It would be praise and work, doing well, parents, right? My parents always seeking this external sense of validation when it really was just kind of this open void of, nothingness. I wasn't tethered. I didn't even know who I was. So I think in order to start into moving into that, I'm obviously a big proponent of therapy and doing that deep seeking. Also, just a complete removal of all, everything, like almost being in that kind of, deprivation tank or something where you're just like, it's just me, I'm here with me. And now I need to figure out who that is. And starting to build that platform of, who am I? Like, what do I like? Because I know what I say I like depending on who I'm with, but I don't actually know. And then knowing yourself then can lead to a sense of resiliency because you're really attached to the person you are, regardless of what's going on, outside of that. So I think it was kind of a building block sense of, coming to self. But the only thing you have to change is everything. And I kind of believe that in the sense of, if you're seeing the same things with the same people and nothing's changing, then you're absolutely, not going to build the resiliency or even come back to it. You might be resilient in that time because you're still surviving, but you're more surviving, not thriving in that sense.
Yeah. And I really like the idea of resilience not being this thing that you just push through and make it happen. It's finding that path to thrive and to be able to face life and get stronger and bounce higher and bounce higher and bounce higher from every struggle and every thing, and see it as a lesson, see it as a tool, see it as something you take in and you build yourself with each way. Is there a particular moment that you remember that you're like, this has to stop? I need to change what I'm doing?
Yeah, I mean, there were a few really peak moments for me, and it wasn't necessarily anything that had happened. Um, it was a sense of sadness of what I really felt like I could be. I like waking up in the morning and thinking, God, I feel like I've always been really into running or nature or fitness or these things that involve active, involvement. And I was so sick from my activities. And it's also it's physically sick from alcohol use, right? Because my body was drained, but it was also energetically, I was just drained. I was making poor decisions. I was always putting myself in bad predicaments. I'd wake up with just, it's almost like you're drained from guilt and shame, humiliation, and then you're physically sick on top of that. So I wouldn't do anything that would bring someone joy, like walking or hiking a mountain or going to the beach and watching the waves come to shore. No, I was too busy trying to figure out how I was going to feel normal. And that really brought me a sense of sadness because it was a sense of loss, a loss of what you could. I had no idea what I could be because I was so stuck. And I think that knowing moving forward, knowing that there are no limitations or not giving yourself any is so important because I still don't know what I could ultimately be. And I don't want to put limits on that either. I want to be open to that. And I think that also builds resiliency. So I think those moments of just like, gosh, like if I were healthier or happier or content, what would I do? Like, what am I missing? And who am I missing out on? Like, where are my people? Right?
Yeah, you
Sad.
definitely have to get on the right vibration to attract the people that are meant for you. And if you're
Sure
not
do.
there, you're going to keep attracting the wrong people that are not for you. So
Yeah,
that'll drag you down to their level, the crabs in the bucket. So I totally relate to that.
absolutely. You definitely attract people at your vibration level. It's amazing how few people I have from that life at this point in time. Very, very few people. And I try to hold on to those people. It's like you naturally go, like it's just a natural pull from that. You don't even have to really like make an effort besides just pouring into yourself. It kind of just evolves, you know? It's not like I was like, I'm done with you guys. I didn't have to do that. I just focused on self, and then this new evolution came, and here I was with this new community of people, and a new, you know, form of adulthood, because I was in my 30s, so like, you know, or like early 30s. So yeah, it's scary to make a new community at that age too.
Well, and community is huge today because you really have to make the effort to choose, but you also have the beautiful freedom of who you choose. I love who's been in this community. I've been able to interview people all around the world and just find out how much we have in common as mothers and the similar struggles. We all want our kids to do well, but also we have all this variations of what motherhood is, but it's still sacred and it's still beautiful and it's still yours, whatever you want to make of it. And so I love to hear people overcoming things and then stepping into motherhood, because I think that's the grandest adventure that we as women get to take on. And I'm curious, as you were going through this transition, and then we'll probably get into 2020 pregnancies, because I don't know if I've had anyone else I can really talk about that, because it's definitely was a unique period of time to be having a child in the world. But I'm curious, what was like one of the first tools or one of the first steps that you really held onto and maybe still practice today that helped you develop this new sense of self?
Yeah, sure. And I also wanted to share kind of like where that peak, or where that kind of ended up starting, because when it goes back to like resiliency and limitations too, and you're asking about like moments, I did end up going, I was hospitalized quite a bit in my last run of alcoholism. Um, you know, my body, some people can drink their entire lives the way I did and live to, you know, 90. I mean, like part of it's just like lifestyle choices, of course, also genetics, like all these things. And my body just said no. Like my liver failed. They want to take my gallbladder out, but I had an appendectomy a long time ago. And so they didn't want to go back in and remove more, like filtering, you know, things from my body. So I did have a moment where I was at another emergency room, being admitted, and the doctor, you know, had run tests and things and kind of sat me down and said, I have to be honest with you. He seemed pretty green, like he was like a more fresh out of med school doctor. And he's like, I don't know, even if you did stop today, I'm not sure that you're going to see, you know, your 40th birthday. And I didn't know what to do with that.
Oh,
Right? Like I didn't know
oh.
is this an encouraging piece of information, or is it a devastating piece of it? Is it both? Is it all? Right?
Mm.
I left that appointment because it's like, even if I do the thing, I might not be able to ever. And I don't know the intention behind that statement, right? Like clearly there was desperation with this man. I don't know if there was a personal connection to addiction. I don't know if there was some stigmatized things coming out from this statement. I don't know what it was, but what I felt was like, oh, even if you do the thing now, it might not even matter. And I
Mm.
had to make decisions based on that information, because I think depending on who you are, you would do many different things after that, right? You
Mhm.
might just say, well, then, right? Like, bring me the bottle, because what's the point, right?
Mhm.
So when it comes to resiliency, I think that was another pivotal thing, because I did end up going to rehab after that. And I did end up, I sold my house to go to rehab.
Wow.
I didn't have any insurance. I was a bartender, so I didn't have any private insurance to get me into these kinds of things. So I had to invest. And the only thing I had personal, I didn't have a nice car or anything, was the house that my parents had helped me get off my, on my feet. Well, that enabling feature. So I did end up doing that, which again, I think builds to the resiliency of what I'm going to do. And then as far as tools, I think that one of the things I learned, and I still learn, is to not do everything for everyone all the time.
Yep.
And start to pull back into self. What does it mean to say no to someone? Like, is that a reflection of me? Because that's what I feel, right? Like I'm not good enough, or, they won't like me, or they're going to be mad, or I might get fired, or, or they'll find a reason, to,
or even just FOMO. I'm missing out on this opportunity somebody's giving me.
Or FOMO. Yeah. What are they going to do if I don't go? What am I going to miss out on? Yeah. It's so many things, like me, see me, hear me. I want to do good. I feel like that 5-year-old of me comes out, right? Like I see it in my own kid. And so I think learning that it is okay to stop, doing things for like extending and bending and breaking myself all the time for people. And that's one of the first things that I did. Admitting that I needed to go to rehab was one of the first things that I had to do. And that's a public affair for my family, right? My mom's one of those that, like, when something happens, she sends an email to the whole family. This is a thing. And it's like, oh no, so we all have to get together. And like the intention, of course, behind it is great. Like, let's come together. But there's also a lot of courage to come and say, like, I know that this thing is going to be like cousins and aunts and uncles and grandparents. And so, humility, the courage to tell people you need help, and to step foot into whatever that means, for you, for one.
That takes so much courage. It really does. And I think that anytime we have a moment where we truly have to face ourselves for the first time and be honest with ourselves on, this isn't working, this isn't who I want to be, that's the first step. And then asking for help is the next one that is huge. So we're not meant to do this alone. We're here to help each other. And it's beautiful. You have so much family willing to help you, but at the same time, you want to have them be proud of you. But there should be no shame and guilt in admitting, I'm human, I'm struggling, I need help here. And I think that's where mental health and trauma, sometimes people don't get what they need, and it makes things worse because there's shame or guilt in admitting, I'm human. It turns out, I was talking to someone else that was an expert on the podcast, and we were talking about depression and suicidal ideation. And we had the conversation about everyone at some point in their life is probably going to have a suicidal thought. It's not unique to the human condition to have that thought at some point. So why are we putting so much shame and guilt on it? Because then people don't go ask for help. Yeah. Why do we need to be able to acknowledge that we're flawed? It's part of this experience here. But that, with the right help and following our intuition, we can make those weaknesses our strength, which is another part of your story, because now you help people with the struggle that you had. You've made your mess your message, and you have more power because you can validate somebody who's going through it. Somebody's going to want to work with you because you've been through the trenches with it. You're not just giving some psychological theory that's out there. You've lived it. And there's so much power in that when we share that with each other and can be like, hey, you're down here, let me lift you up. And we need more of that today as well.
Yeah, thanks. No, I do really value that part of, it's like the one industry where, being in recovery is like the thing you do want to say that when you're in an interview, right? Like you do want to say, like, I struggled proudly. Like any other interview, any other field, you would not. And I think it is funny how it's like should and shame. Like, every time I say I should something, I know it's rooted in shame. And I should, look a certain way to people. I should be able to do this on my own. I should be able to go to the grocery store without having anxiety. Like like, right, like I'm constantly putting shame back on myself every time I have that suggestive thought that I should be able to do it. Right. And then when it comes to family, as we become so isolated in nature, even with more technology, like, there's more isolation that, like, I have very limited interaction with my aunt and uncles and cousins. I do. And so I would love that what they know about me, of course, is going to be all the positive things. And I bet a lot of people can relate to that listen to things on resiliency, because, there is this, this scared part of us that, like, wants to be seen in good light all the time. And we start to limit, our interactions so much that, like, we want all the interactions to be positive. We even have that toxic positivity mentality where you can't tell someone what your day is really like. It's like, it's fine. It's good. No, things are good. Right. So we're so, like, programmed to, like, always be in this light, and, like, I won't bother you with, the fact that, like, there's still guilt even sharing words.
As I listen to this, I'm thinking about a podcast I was listening to, and this just hit so hard. And I think it's so true since COVID. We are obsessed with things now that aren't real. I mean, come on, the highlight reels that people are giving, it's not real. Like, the focus even on the negative in the world without balancing it with the positive, it's not real. The idea that you can live in isolation and be healthy, it's not real. We need to be connected. We don't division, judgment, these things that are dividing us are the detriment to us. And I think it's really interesting to see how COVID in particular started this isolation. And we were talking about before we got on, and that trauma has made everyone try to create safety, which makes sense. That's an automatic survivor trauma response, but it's carrying on. And then things like AI are coming in, and social media is stronger, and online presence is stronger. And it's just getting us to forget how to connect, because when we connect, we want to connect in this perfect way where we're viewed well and we're accepted in a world that isn't real. Like, this kind of idea that there's the matrix and there's the real world, I think, is the best analogy to put in it. And so I think the key there is to find how to show up authentically. And we are moving towards that a little bit more in some ways. We like people who are real online more than the fully dolled up, the fully thing. And that's why I like these conversations just be an authentic 30-minute conversation where it wasn't extremely planned. I'm getting to know you. My questions are in the moment, curiosity, because I hope it helps people remember how to have conversations. I hope it helps people remember how we need to connect to each other. I was recently in a worldwide Tony Robbins event that was Unstoppable Women. And it was the HERS UPW group. And they are really good at taking surveys and seeing where everyone's at in the group. And the biggest thing everyone was struggling with was connection and relationships. And I just think that speaks a lot to how we've let the phone and we've let technology get in the way. I mean, I grew up with no phones, no computers. There were kind of computers in elementary school. There weren't cell phones till I was in college. Thank goodness, actually, in a lot of ways. And so we need to come back to those things. We need to come back to understanding that everybody's going through something, and we should treat them like they are, not expect somebody to be this superhero figure in our lives, or for them to be somehow immune because they're an influencer or they're someone in the public light. We are all human, and we all have struggles, and we all need to connect on the things that help us help each other, to just realize we have more in common than we have different. And we cannot continue down the path of losing connection. We're going to not create the future that we want for our kids if we don't shift.
Sure. I mean, and it going back to, like, also vulnerability, right? Like we were saying before this, it's almost like it is a natural trauma response to kind of go back into oneself, in response to COVID, right? And I was saying, like, as someone whose astrological sign, I'm a Cancer, and that signifies the crab. And so like, yeah, like going back into the shell, reverting to that, it's like the peeking of the head out to say like, is it safe, right? Is that vulnerability piece. I mean, even having this conversation, right? There's so much vulnerability. What if someone is like, oh, I couldn't stand that person on that podcast today. Like, right. Like we're putting ourselves out there. And that's what like we have to remind ourselves that like give them more data, like be out there more, have more conversations with strangers at that grocery store or what have you. Like, the more that they know, the more they can connect, the more they see it from a holistic point of view. Right. And so if you're only showing someone, one dimensional, that's not true connection, right? They're not really connecting. So God forbid, you are more human and you're in a place of having to be more, human emotions. They're not going to feel as tethered to that. Right. So, high risk, high reward. And I think just putting yourself out there, at your own pace, I think the more you duck your head out and know that it's like safe, like the more you can keep doing it and the longer you can hold it out. Right. Like, so it's kind of that exposure therapy in a sense of maybe you'll just hang out and lay on, the sand all day one day because you've kind of been more accustomed to being vulnerable, being authentic, genuine, and that intuition of knowing self. I am me. I know who I am. It's okay that I'm not everything to everyone, right? And so, because that's ultimately what it comes back to, just being okay with the messy, the ugly, the not, filtered, right? Not AI'd version of yourself, not knowing what question you're going to ask me next. Like, is it scary? Sure, but it promotes growth, right?
Yep.
You get stronger. You feel more confident. You're like, even if it goes poorly, you're like, oh, that was awful. But like, the takeaway, maybe not in that second, but later on, I want to be the old woman at 95. I'm really trying for 95, and say like, yeah, fingers crossed, or 100 or 105 and say like, you know what? I put it all out there and I did it. And, who cares? Right. Like,
Yeah.
because I don't care anymore. And instead of like, gosh, I wish I had gone on that podcast. I wish I'd talked to that good looking guy at the grocery store in line behind me. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
And I think we will. I think when we get to that age with all the more wisdom and the more data we build and the more confidence, I think we are going to be those 105-year-old ladies on our deathbed going, damn it, I should have done it differently. I don't want to live like that. I want to live like that now, knowing that now.
That's actually an exercise that a lot of personal development people have you do is like write your obituary or have a letter written to you from your future self, just to give you that longer perspective. I think that's a really great way to look at it as motivation or your higher self, because if we get caught in the instant gratification here and now, we can get so lost in what really is in our control, which is this moment and what we're going to choose in this moment. But yes, it does affect the future. It doesn't necessarily change the past that we're obsessed with. And it doesn't determine how this moment is going to go. But if we can bring the best intention into it, we know that we gave it our best. And that's all we can do. And then from there, what's meant to happen is meant to happen. I cannot, it's so funny how many times there's like, I maybe have the schedule mixed up or something, and I'll have a random guest come on that's like a perfect fit for the theme for the month. I had nothing to do with it. I just showed up. And sometimes I think that's half the battle, is just showing up as your authentic self and letting what happened happen. Don't put expectations on any of it. Be open to what the universe will give you if you'll just be your authentic self, I think is key.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I want people to be at my funeral,
Yeah.
right? I want people to be there. And you know what? I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want them to say I was like kind of the wacky, a little out there, like gosh, but like I want to be remembered as being out there and just going for trying for the hit and the home run, even when I don't even know how to bat, like
Yeah.
that's okay. That's okay, you know, because at that point, I at least knew I tried, I did it, even if I, whatever failure means, I don't even like, how do you even define that, right? Like,
Yep.
I'd rather at least have attempted it than never ever know. And I think that really goes back to the resiliency concept, because I think the more you at least try to do the things, and I think it goes when we are saying like things that you really want to do, not things that other people say like, you know, you should do because it's what they want, but the things that you really want to try for, not putting limits on that and just giving it your all and learning to laugh at ourselves a little bit more,
Yeah.
right? You know, like we tried and we do it, and it's fun to like, you don't know what door you just opened by trying. You have no idea
Mhm.
where that'll lead you,
Yep.
right?
Exactly. Well, and I think you have to approach motherhood that way, the way we're talking right now too, because I mean, there's no manual. I'm like,
Yeah.
there,
They'll
you
give
get
you
into
those.
it and you have no idea. I think I grew up with a lot of, I don't know, ideas of what motherhood was going to look like. And I knew intuitively I always wanted to be a mom, even though I kind of was the mini mom of the oldest of six. And so I was kind of mothering from at least 8 years old, because my mom had 6 kids in 8 years. And it was like, you just became the other mom in the
Yeah.
family role, whether you wanted to be or not. And, but it didn't turn out at all the way I expected it to. Not at all.
Nope.
However,
Nope.
I always intended to be a good mom. And that definition has changed through this podcast. It's changed through my experience. And it's also made me realize it's really a unique journey, because every family is unique, every dynamic is unique. And so you can't really put one formula or one label on anyone's motherhood. And if you can let go of that, oh, there's so much more freedom in your motherhood to explore, figure out what works, not worry about judgment, not worry about what somebody else is thinking, and just trust your gut on what you know you and your kids need, because no one else is going to know that but you as their mother.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And it is funny. I feel like no matter what we do, our kids are going to have something, that they're going to gripe about us.
Uh-huh.
I think,
Mhm.
you come from a place of that innate knowing of where your intention is and move from that.
Thank you for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe so we can share this message. We are a worldwide podcast with guests all around the world, and we want to continue to grow this community. You can find us on socials. You could also be a guest. Look for that link below if you'd be interested in being a guest on the podcast. If you know a sponsor or would like to be a sponsor, please reach out to me or Catherine as well.
Sure. We want you all on this journey. We want to hear your stories. We want to share your stories. We want to gain strength from each other, because together we're stronger. And to never forget the blessing of being a mother and what we're creating. We're creating the future every single day of our lives. So get on this train with us and let's do this thing, moms.
I believe in you. Believe in yourself. God bless. And we'll see you around. Take care.